All right, I think we will begin. I want to thank you for being here. We appreciate that you took the time out of your evening to be here on a very important topic for us. We take these conversations very seriously about a lot of topics, but especially this one. I'm Terry Hogenson. I'm the lead principal at Muscatine High School. And I guess I just want to start off by saying that, you know what, I'm very proud to be the principal of the high school, and I'm very comfortable with saying that it's a safe and good place to learn. And I think that I'm not just saying those words because I'm there, I'm saying those words because I honestly believe it is a great institution that serves kids well, and that we do a good job on a day-to-day basis. I want to acknowledge the events that took place that transpired that motivated us to be here tonight. But I'm not going to spend much time at all reviewing and going over those things in any detail. But they did propel us to have this meeting and to make sure that we're covering this topic so that you as a community understand that we do have a system, we have processes in place, and that we are always engaged in trying to make sure that our environment is safe and secure. I'd like to express my appreciation to the Muscatine Police Department, who works alongside the school system in all of these kind of matters through assessment, investigation, and response. We truly don't work in isolation. We work as a team, and they are great teammates. They are wonderful people to come in. They take their job very seriously also, and they are a great support for us. I also want you to know some important things. One is that we will never put your children at risk. If there is any chance that something awful, something bad could transpire that could hurt your children, our children, we won't be in session. We will not have school. We will not put your children in any danger because they're just too darn valuable. And so I want you to feel comforted in knowing that your kids are your kids at home, but when they come in our doors, they're our kids, and we treat them that way as best we can. We also ask that you have a conversation with your children about reporting any information that they may hear, because we don't want to silence things. We don't want people to say, well, this isn't something we should talk about. If there is any sort of a potential threat that exists, if there's any sort of potential problem, we want to know, and we want students to feel comfortable enough they can go to a counselor, a teacher, me, anyone else, and say that there is something that they think is going on, so that we can start an investigation into that and make sure that we take care of our students, our property, all of those things. We are committed to communicate with families as quickly as we can and as fast as the facts allow us. Unfortunately, I can tell you that rumors move a lot faster than facts. And what we found in this instance also was that a lot of people weren't waiting for the facts. They were posting things, they were saying things, they were guessing, they were doing those things. And it was creating a lot of disruption, kind of unnecessarily, from the fact that it didn't bear out with anything that was based on any truth that we could have. And so it complicated things tremendously. But also, we know it's kind of the way the world works. But we just ask that everybody act with measure because, again, we are not going to be in session. We will not do anything that would put your children in danger. So we're not going to be in session. We're not going to do those things that would put any students in hallways or in anywhere else if we knew or believed that there is any sort of a problem that would exist. Our schools are being trained or have been trained in the past with like ALICE training, which stands for Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Encounter, and Evade. And this is one thing that we're already planning on doing in November. And these things were all planned prior to the events that took place a couple weeks ago. Because again, we want our staff to be well prepared. Probably an area that we could improve on and that we're talking about what this will look like is drills that run with students. And we don't probably mean full intruder drills as much as we are doing like information on how lockdowns are run, what their intention is, what the purpose is, having our students really truly involved in the conversation so they understand what we're trying to accomplish as we're trying to make sure that our building is safe and secure. I will be turning the microphone over to Captain Snider and Lieutenant Keys. But I want to kind of go over kind of how the evening is going to go so that you can have and know how your voice can be heard in the conversation. After our police officers introduce themselves and make their comments, we'll have a question and answer period. Okay? At that time, if you have questions to ask, you can raise your hand and someone will come around with an index card of which you can script out your question, and then at that point they will bring those forward. We'll try and address the questions during the 1 hour period of time that we've set aside for this. But if not, if we are unable to get to all the questions answered, then what we're going to do is have an FAQ established so that that will be out so that everybody can see that the questions they ask are being taken seriously and that we're trying to address those. We won't be answering hypothetical questions. So if we're saying, well, what would happen if? What would happen? Well, there's a lot of those things, and you can get caught up in a whole spin cycle of that, and that is not what this evening is all about. This is about talking to you about the processes that we have, the procedures we use to make sure that you understand that we don't just react to things. We have a plan, we have a purpose, we work together collaboratively to get these jobs done, to get whatever's in front of us addressed. So that's really going to be the focus point that we're going to try and go over and review with you. And hopefully at the end of the time that you'll feel that that's rewarding and you feel like it was worth your time to being here tonight. With that being said, I'm going to roll the conversation over to Captain Snider and let him take it from there.
Good evening. I'm Captain Steve Snider with the Muscatine Police Department, as I was introduced by Principal Hogenson here. Real quickly, I don't have a whole lot of in-depth talk that I'm going to do about any particular incident, as we said at the beginning. Sitting behind me here is Lieutenant Keys, Tony Keys. He's in charge of our investigative division. And we kind of work together whenever we receive threats or possible threats within the school system. We have 2 school resource officers that work within the school. They are here with us tonight as well. And I'm just going to give you a brief overview as to kind of how we handle these things so that maybe in the future your mind is a little more at ease and you understand a little bit more about the process. When we receive any information of a threat or a possible threat, and it could be anything from an assault about to take place, a bomb threat, or even the student who threatens violence at the school, mass violence. So our first step is security and identifying the individuals involved and making sure that everything from that aspect is secure and that nobody's in harm's way. So even if you hear there was a possible threat going on, even through social media or whatever, and that school is in session, it's because we've already identified those people and we've already satisfied that they're isolated and we can deal with this at a later date. So when you hear something is under investigation, it doesn't mean we're spinning our wheels. We take immediate action to identify and isolate that threat, and then the investigation is ongoing. We don't necessarily charge right away. The investigation is ongoing until we have full facts. But we do take immediate steps to ensure everybody's safety. So when you hear these things about threats or what have you, and you see that that school is still in session, it's because we've already taken steps to make sure that that is isolated and nobody's in harm's way. The reactions, I was not here personally for the event that happened here a week or 2 ago, but I have been briefed by some of the stuff that happened out of that and the misinformation that was going out over social media, and it did create quite a problem in many aspects of that investigation. So what our goal is here is to ensure you that we're working together with the school system and that we're going to put out information as quickly as we can, as quickly as the fact gathering will allow, so that people will know as much as we can tell them. Obviously, there are certain aspects of every investigation that we don't disclose to the public, and many of these investigations involve juveniles and kids that are reacting for some reason or another. So put yourself in the shoes of the parent that it's your child that did this, and how much information would you want out there in the community. Juvenile investigations are confidential, and their records are as well confidential, and it's not something we readily release unless there's a serious criminal charge involved with that. So be patient with that aspect of it, and I'm going to let Lieutenant Keys talk a little bit more about his process and what his investigators do once we get things going here with the investigation.
Excellent. Does anybody have questions so far so Whitney and Angela can bring you a note card and you can write them down? The quicker we get a question wrote down, the better we'll be able to respond to these. So please, we're here tonight to answer them. Write them down. So the word investigation seems to stump some people, and that's probably a word, if you watch the news or look in the media, investigation is always ongoing. So when you hear that, if we have an incident at the school that is currently under investigation and the school is not shut down, that is because it's safe. Nothing gets completed in an hour, in a day. Sometimes it takes weeks, months to complete an investigation. No matter what time of the day it is that we receive these complaints or these threats, we have detectives on call 24 hours a day, and we will answer these. If we don't believe on the investigative side that the threat that's come into this school with guns or knives, I promise you there will be no school. We will have that cleared before the next school day. So when we receive that information, we'll work directly with Whitney and Angela, the two school resource officers. We'll know who made the threat, and we'll have done a house visit. That will be immediately will happen. So if there's any questions about how the incident is handled when it is a threat of violence, that's what takes place. I sometimes don't see those threats of violence till after it's already made social media, which that isn't intelligence for me as much as it is information, because it's already been relayed several times. So understanding there's a big difference about what you see on social media and what actually took place for the threat of violence. Did you want me to talk about expectations? With the last event that took place, I was here, and some of the expectations that need to hopefully be understood so we're all on the same page with the student and with the parents. If there is an active school shooter and we're in lockdown, you do no good to come to the scene to us. We can't bring you into the school, and we will not let you in. So understanding that when we have a lockdown, our expectation for you as parents, you will not be able to drive up to the school. You will cause more harm than good by doing such. Facebook misinformation, Twitter, I'm missing some, whatever else is out there. The correct information will be on the school website. You will see a press release done by the school and the police department. It will be together. That is accurate information. Our expectations for you as parents, if you do see a threat, is to please call the police department immediately. If you think there's an act of violence, a threat of violence to the school, report it. Call 911 and report it. Our student expectations is not having them repost. Reposting these, even if they think it's a threat, is the worst thing they can do. If they have a post, go to you as parents and report it to the police, not to social media. Whitney.
I think I've got this one's pretty good. This question is, there are many doors in each school building. What is the district doing to limit entry into each school and to screen the people entering? I will speak for the high school because each building is somewhat unique by its design. We have a double layer of things as they enter the front door. There are two doors that are in there, so the inside doors are always locked until they are allowed to come in by the person at the front attendance counter. So there's always a buffer that exists between them. We also have, our doors are to be shut. Access to the, from the outside to the in of the building is to be locked throughout the school day as much as possible. If some doors are left open, we are having security go around by those doors to make sure that kids are let in from like the Van Heck Center or so on and so forth to make sure that they can get in from their classes. But other than that, we make it extremely challenging for people to get into the building when it's not, during the school day. And so that's just a general thing. There are a lot of doors to be monitored. We have our custodians also go around each evening and double check all the doors to make sure that they're secured and so that they are not propped open or left in some way so that someone can get in. It says, up at this point, why has the staff not had ALICE training? Is it possible to send a quick notice to the parents to let them know their kids are okay? I think that's the word. The staff has had ALICE training in the past. So the thing that we can say is that it hasn't been an ongoing every year training. A number of our staff have had experience in this, but a lot of our new staff over the course of the last 2 years have not. So that's why we're rotating those through and having the ALICE training this year. Again, we had planned on that prior to any events that took place because we just realized that it's important for our staff to feel safe in how they can advise students in what to do during an urgent situation, kind of that's on the fly and we have to respond without having an opportunity to have a night to process what the events are. And so those are always very frightening experiences for us to make sure because those things are very fluid. But if we give students and staff better training on how to deal with those, we feel that, that with the ALICE training and the new model that's a part of that will help us to make sure that we can, in those moments, hopefully make better decisions, and hopefully we would never have to experience that in any way or form, but we want to prepare for some level of readiness for those.
One of the questions I have here is the fact that somebody expressed it should be the parents' choice as to whether to send their kids to school, and communications of threats should be relayed to parents so they can make that decision as to whether they want to send their kid or not. Just to quickly address that, we had one incident here that kind of snowballed and got out of control, and it was largely due to misinformation that was being sent out and shared, and rather than search for a source that would actually give you factual information, I think some of the parents believed what they were seeing on social media, and it snowballed into what we had in that event. The fact of the matter is we handle several threats throughout the school year that people never even know about. As soon as we debunk them, as soon as we isolate them, as soon as we intervene with them, and we talk with the family and we get a safety plan in place, the school is a large part of that. We work together with them. This is nothing we do on our own. It is truly a group effort. That, again, if we felt there was a threat, if we felt there was a viable threat, we would just shut down the school. We would make that decision and there would be no school that day. When we have the threats and we keep the school open, it means that we've already taken measures that have satisfied that level of threat, is isolated, and that it's not a threat to anybody or any of the kids at the school. So that is how we operate on that. I do not intend to change that. I do not intend to make every threat we receive by a kid a public matter. I think that's counterproductive, and I think it would just spark more panic and fear than it would do any good. Kids are emotional, kids are immature, kids make statements sometimes they don't necessarily mean, and not every threat is actually a credible threat. And I think folks need to understand that. And we, like I say, our first steps is intervention, isolation, and making sure that things are safe and the situation is what it is or is what it is not. So that's why we do what we do. And I just think trying to make every threat public knowledge would be counterproductive to everybody involved. We've got a question here: what measures the Muscatine schools take as preventative, and what type of security measures do the schools have? I think Principal Hogenson answered some of those questions. And I know they've taken measures to secure classroom doors recently. A lot of money was spent on that, and locks that are specially designed for lockdowns and threat events. I think you have a very secure school system, and I think they do a very good job at what they do. We've helped assess some of their buildings and help them create some ideas as to how to better things. They have followed a lot of that advice, and like Principal Hogenson said, they provide a very safe environment at your schools. So, and then I have a final question of, does the Muscatine High School have metal detectors, or will they be using metal detectors? I can't personally answer that, but I would say no. You've got a student body of 1,500 kids. It would almost be an impossible nightmare to make every kid walk through a metal detector before school. So I guess if there's a question of that, if there's a question of whether there's a weapon, they have the right to search on safety concerns, and they have the right to do that. So rather than swipe a metal detector over a bag, they just open the bag and they look in the bag. So I guess that would be my answer to that question. Maybe Principal Hogenson would have a different viewpoint on that, but that's how I would deal with that.
Seems like there's several on the same page for training for the students. We've had meetings over the last couple weeks. The students have not had training. It's going to take place. We're trying to figure out what we are going to do that is going to be the best for the students when training them. They will know where a safe place is to go. They will know what to do. Alice is the biggest start of active threat and violence in the schools. We're going to couple that with some run, hide, fight training that all of you can go home and Google run, hide, fight and watch a short clip. As far as drills and trainings, they're going to be taught every year for the high school, as so far. It'll be just as a tornado drill or a fire drill. It'll at least be talked about and mentioned. So the teachers, usually every couple years, and in our last meetings, it will be yearly. Understanding that us as a law enforcement agency, Muscatine County, we invite everybody, Wilton, West Liberty, West Branch, to do a large-scale incident. Takes gobs of men and women power and overtime to make it happen. And when you're short-handed, it doesn't always work every 360 days like you want it to. But we are going to do another scaled event. It may not be at the school, and we may use it as a business. We have several places to hit, but we are trying. I don't understand a question on what safeguards other than locking down main doors from a person who is threatening violence, but the question is, do elementary schools have ALICE training? And the answer is yes. Officer Payne has been doing it the last few weeks. We will conduct training again with the high school teachers in November, and we have a 2-hour block scheduled for that as well. One of the things we're going to highlight with the students as well as the teachers is prevention and what to look for. So the training topics have changed. There's a question about social media and using it to our advantage. I'll make myself very clear at this time. Unless it changes, and you'll know on the school and city website, we will not use social media for anything we push out on an active threat of violence. And the rumor about the media being let in and being in the girls' bathroom on the last event, I will address that. It will never happen again. A school employee had let a media badged, I'm not even going to go into depth of who it was, needed to use the restroom, so they allowed that to happen thinking they could do that. That backfired on a couple questions that were asked when they were in the school, and that will never happen again.
The question I have here are security measures going to be tightened? I guess I will answer that by we take security very, we're very serious about that every single day. Tightening it meaning that we had conversations since this occurred as to where are the locations of our members on the security team, how are we monitoring our hallways? Absolutely. Are we always trying to find ways to make sure that we're covering as much area as possible with the people we have? Yes, we do. We have 5 security officers, or 5 security people, not officers, security people that are in the school system at the high school that monitor our hallways, that are roaming around, making sure that if there's any incidents that they're there to respond to them, escort students when necessary from classrooms. We also have a school SRO officer which is active in all events, helping to monitor our cameras. I would say well over 90% of our building has camera access, and so we're able to pretty much track students throughout our hallways at any given time and locate what's going on. But what we can't do is identify when random acts occur. I mean, and people sometimes say, well, what's the guarantee? We can't provide a guarantee. There's no guarantee for anything that exists in this thing. Random acts are just simply that. And they're usually, when they happen, they're very smart about when those moments take place, is that they're not taking place when other people or adults are around. Okay, so what we do is we do the best we can to keep people moving. If we see crowds congregating, if we see conversations going, if we see play acting where kids are playing, whatever with each other, doing some pushing, shoving stuff, we intervene with those. We talk to the students, and we try to make sure they understand that that's not their responsibility, is to create anything that even gets the appearance of a problem or issue. One of the things that's asked is, can doors be locked in the morning? Doors are locked in the morning until a very specified time, and then doors are unlocked and students are allowed in only on certain doors. And at that point, people are at those locations making sure as students are entering the building that they are being watched as they enter the building. They then have locations that they can go to throughout the building where they can congregate and socialize, getting prepared for the morning's activities. The doors are locked. This one is what our security measures are being taken. I think I've kind of addressed that. Teachers are being provided also this year again with active shooter training, what to do during those instances so that they can best prepare themselves in a case that something that awful would take place. Staff all have the opportunity, due to the foresight of the district, to create doors that can be locked from the inside, which is a very positive thing for us. So it used to be that a staff member may have to go outside their door into the hallway, lock their doors, and then go back in, but that would expose them to some form of danger. So now a staff member has keys, areas that they can go into a door, lock it from the inside, and secure it from there. There is a question that didn't show up on here but was kind of addressed through some things. I want to address that also, is the term lockdowns. It's been brought up a few times, but there are different kind of levels of lockdowns that I want to make sure that people realize. A lockdown can be run internally for a number of things. We have had instances where a student is having a seizure in a hallway, and we know that that would be extremely embarrassing to that student. And so what we tried to do is limit the access for students to walk by and see this and potentially say anything or ask that student anything that they don't want to have to explain or deal with. So we may call for a lockdown at that opportunity just to keep students out of the hallway until we get the students secured to a place or that the seizure ends. And that's happened several times in our willingness to do it. We also run lockdowns if the canine dogs come through. We usually schedule dogs to come through and do drug checks on the building, sniff out the lockers, those kinds of things, as again another way to try and provide a level of security. We let school go on as normal as much as possible, but we do run a lockdown so students are not in the hallways, and so because that would interfere with the process of those kinds of things. if we ever had a true lockdown because there was an imminent danger in the building and we were calling for a lockdown. In that place, then all students would be, and we would not be allowing access to the building by anyone, and we would not be letting students leave because any door that would open would offer access to the building from someone else. And so at that point, we'd be very stringent on how we would be interpreting that. This one is how are you monitoring the hallways? Again, that is through our security. Again, they can't be everywhere. The assault that did take place happened before school started. And so that was, because there was some impression that maybe that was happening in the middle of the school day. That is not when that transpired. And we were able to interact with that situation and have the person engaged in that activity kind of apprehended or in our own hands within 15 to 20 minutes, and parents there dealing with this within about 30. So we responded very quickly to that situation. It's just that it happened, again, in an area that was hard for us to get to in a timely way, and was one that they probably more carefully selected to be where adults weren't around. Okay. What is the truth behind the current internet availability, cell phone use during the school day? We allow students to use their cell phones in the hallways. We allow students to use them in the cafeteria. We allow them to use them during study hall time. We do not allow them to use them during instructional time unless a teacher feels that cell phone is a part of the instruction. So if the teacher says, you can take this out and I want you to use the calculator on it. If you want to do this, they have the right as a teacher to allow it under specified circumstances, but we do not want that out because it interferes with general instruction during the school day. But students have frequent access in their times that they are going between classes and at their lunchtime before or after school. If the school and police are aware of situations prior to the start of the school day, can preemptive notice be given to parents and students? And I think this is a level of measure that we use, that we are in communication with our police department as to where they see the level of potential issue with this. Is this a unlikely, or has this already been started to be investigated in what the situation is? We do not want to create more panic than we need to. Thankfully, almost all of these kind of things tend to be more rumor-oriented than they are fact-oriented. And if we sent out something every single time some student said something that they, in the hallways, given that I have, a whole building filled with freshman thinkers, who knows how often we would be doing that. So what we do is we use great measure. We try to use restraint in looking at a situation, evaluating it thoroughly, and then making a decision on what the nature of that is. If there is any situation that exists that we feel has a potential, let's not use the word likelihood, but just a potential in any way or form, we will be involving in getting correspondence out as quickly as possible. And that is one of the things that we're coordinating better, even with the police department since this event, is how to make sure that our communication network is as tight as possible and that we're putting out a common message, because we all need to be on the same page and we want to reduce the opportunities for rumors to exist. What is being done at the classroom level to calm kids and provide them with accurate information? And then went on to say that there have been incidents in this calendar year where their child felt concern for their safety and they felt that this was not addressed by administration. I can tell you that any incident we have is addressed by administration. We don't always publicize what we do, but we're always involved in some level of the conversation if there's anything that we can be involved with. The students, we are talking about what is the level of knowledge that they need to know while something is going on. Again, if it's rumor-oriented and it doesn't seem to have any fact, creating more issues with those conversations only spurs more people to have more conversations. One of the things, and I'm just going to say was kind of, let's just say disheartening, was that we had an instance during the events that transpired where someone came in. We had already made an announcement that said that this was a hoax. We made an announcement over the intercom to our student body to make sure that they were aware of what was going on and that things were being taken care of. At that same time, a parent was in the front area and started to post that I am at the school, there is an active shooter in the building, and we're in lockdown. That was totally totally wrong. That was totally inaccurate. It was a lie. We were not in a lockdown. When someone said, well, where are the kids? They were in class. We were running a regular schedule. Those students that were there were still running through a regular schedule. That was one of the things that was very disheartening, is that being there in the school, seeing that, and we felt that that would have been something that was intervened with. But if that would have gone out in anything, that is a very valued thing that the public would see and say, someone there is saying this, even though it had no authenticity. So we were very concerned about the way people were responding in those situations when they knew already what we were saying was already we were promoting the right information, trying to get everything as squared away as we could with our student community as well as our staff. Also, I want to make mention of this before I see if our police officers want to say anything else, is that on the morning of, all of the staff were brought in and all staff were informed as to what was going on and what had transpired or what was transpiring, so that they would be well informed and would be able to communicate that information to students. So if they were having any problems or struggles, they could address those with those students, and that they knew that they could calm those students' nerves down by understanding exactly what was going on during the day. So we did have student announcements, we had parent announcements, we had communication with staff, and we were all doing that as the day was going on to make sure that information was clear and concise and that we were following as good protocols as we could. That being said, I'm going to see if there's any more conversation, anything more that you guys have.
I'll just finish this up with a final question here and some discussion. My first point is, if you see something, say something. Call 911, text 911. You can do either or. If you see a post, this last incident, I know we had parents even that saw posts, and instead of reporting the posts, they shared it. And they put it back out on social media, and that's how this thing began to snowball and snowball. Very few calls came in to 911, if any, on, hey, I'm seeing this on social media, is there an issue? Or I want to report this. Very few calls came into 911. It was just snowballing along on social media. So that's where I say, if you see these things, seek out a credible source, call 911. The dispatchers will tell you if we got something going on or not, but report what you see at least and give us the opportunity to determine whether we're already investigating this, whether it's something new, whether it's something that needs our immediate attention. So that is paramount, and even talk to your children about that, that the proper way to go about that is if they see something, report it so we can get involved with it. That it just ensures everybody's safety. The other one, the question I got here is the increased frequency of school shootings that the district is just now reacting and not being proactive in teaching the students how to react with threats of violence. To answer that, we haven't been keeping our head in the sand. We've been moving this along for several years now, from the public safety aspect of the response of our officers, the response of the fire department. We've been working with the school, and we've actually conducted live training in the school, and we've involved students with that training. And we'll continue to do some of that stuff as much as time, manpower, and money allows. As far as the students themselves, that has been a topic of discussion that has been ongoing with ourselves and the school district personnel as to the curriculum that we need to look at and the things that we need to include in that curriculum. One thing we don't want to do is rush out training and then figure out, well, maybe we should have trained something differently. So we have looked at federal standards. We've looked at a lot of stuff out there. The Run, Hide, Fight comes from the federal government. It's federal recommendations. It's on, as Lieutenant Keith said, on the web. You can pull it up, you can sit down with your kids, and you can review videos of that at home. So some of that training can take place with you folks. One thing I would tell you to please not tell your children is to just get up and leave. And the reason I tell you that is when the school has a protocol, whether it be lockdown, whether it be get out if they can, the teachers are charged with that. They have installed, like I said, security doors on classrooms that help keep those classrooms safe. And if a student suddenly decides that, well, my dad says I need to get up and leave, and he opens that door, he has opened that door to the lives of every kid in that classroom. And the last thing we need is a struggle between a student and a teacher because they're being told to do one thing and the teacher's protocol is to do another. So give that some thought, and give it some thought of, do you really want to call your kid on their cell phone if you think there's an event going on? Because there's always that possibility your child is hiding somewhere and hasn't silenced that cell phone, and somebody nearby hears it. And that can be a real reality. So that's another thing you should think of when you go through this process with your children. Maybe work out a pre-communication plan with them. Let them be the ones that contact you. And maybe you want to avoid calling that phone because you never know what kind of situation they may be in at the time. So those are just some things I want to close up here. This is not something new. This is something we have been doing for the last several years. We started with the public safety aspect. We started coordinating with our fire department. We started doing some stuff called Rescue Task Force training. We've done live exercises. We've done tabletop exercises. We've done them in schools. We've done them in factories. We've done them in companies. We have done training all over town for many individuals and many agencies. We will continue to do that, and we will continue to work with the school to make it the safest we can for everybody's kids. So keep that in mind. If you have questions, you can certainly feel free to email me or Lieutenant Keys, and we will follow up with questions that we can answer for you, and try not to leave anybody in the dark.
So yeah, that gets depressing at the end, talking about active school shooters. I challenge you this. I've offered to everybody in the community that we would do run, hide, fight training, Alice training, and we would teach anybody, any business that called. As the captain mentioned, I think we've trained over 3,000 people, and I have trained all over the state as well as Officer Pena. I'm sure we could open up a place like this if you had enough people to fill it for a active threat training, so you as parents knew what we are teaching at the schools. So please email us if you have questions, inundate me with as much as you can, and if you want some trainings held at your facility or the place you're at, call and I will make it happen. I will reach out to every one of you. My email is not hard to find. Thank you. FAQs. There's some stuff with elementary that we did have some cards. We're not ignoring anybody. That will be answered on the website. Thanks.
I just have a closing statement that I'm going to read, and then we'll conclude. First of all, I want to thank everyone again for taking time out to be with us this evening. I want to thank our police department for presenting. As you go home, I hope you walk away with a few key remembrances. We hope that you know that we never put your children at risk. If there is a likelihood of a threat in the building, we simply will not have school. If school isn't canceled, if the school is going on, then we have mutually understood between the police department and the school system that it is a safe environment to be in. We do work jointly with our police department on all activities, getting information and sharing back and forth to make sure that we're staying current. I assure you that we will work as quickly as we can to resolve any issue that exists. And our big thing is that we want to gain your trust. A cornerstone of this is that when we have people contesting a lot of things, what that really comes down to is a lack of trust. And that's on us. That's on us to prove that we are a trustworthy organization and that we don't hide things, and that is part of what this event was all about, was to make sure that we are not shying away, we're not trying to hide information, we're not trying to not address things, we're trying to be as upfront as we can and as authentic as we can to build that level of trust where you can say, I know that in our school system, they take the safety of our children extremely seriously, and that they are there for them each and every day to make sure that they are protected. I just want to thank you again from the bottom of my heart for being here. I hope that all of you feel it was worthwhile. Thank you.